I was a lot firmer on the contribution of saturated fat to type 2 diabetes. The biggest driver, way above the type of fat you're eating, is the total. Welcome back to The Proof and welcome to episode 400, a milestone that I am still having trouble believing. Today's conversation with Drew Harrisberg, one of my best friends in the entire world. People have been messaging me almost every week to get you back on for whatever reason. I don't know why, but
I'll take it.
The Insulin studies and the Dean Ornish studies, where a lot of people were talking about these low-fat vegan diets as being the best diet for reversing cardiovascular disease, was really the language at the time that was used then. One of the limitations of that research, if you're going to say just consume a diet and don't worry about tracking protein or being thoughtful about protein intake, I think the responsible message is to recommend people consume a diet.
Sometimes I think we get so focused on these macros and micros that we forget about the broader pattern.
But this conversation with Drew also touches on something far deeper. Life's long, but at the same time, it goes too quick.
How unimportant does 1.2 grams of protein now sound after
I think we can delete the first hour and 40 minutes of this podcast. Thanks for coming back. Been a while.
Yeah, it's good to be back. In fact, I dug through the archives. My first time on the show was episode 62.
And we're at 400 now.
Pretty crazy. I don't know how many there's been in between there, but it feels like a lot.
Well, 338.
Of me. Of me on the show. But yes, you're very good at maths. We've done a lot.
You're a popular guest, and people have been messaging me almost every week to get you back on for whatever reason. I don't know why, but
I'll take it.
Here we are. And we thought that we could essentially unscripted just go through reflections. So people will be listening to this episode, I think, first week of 2026. I think what will be instructive for the audience, but also for us, is just to think about what are the conversations we've had in the past year or even earlier? What are lifestyle choices that maybe we personally made, where today we see them differently. Maybe we've changed our view on a particular topic, and we can bring people into the way that thinking has evolved.
Yeah, I love that. I've sort of thought back to that first episode. The reason I went back to see what our topic was, and it was actually when I first went from keto to plant-based. And that story is well documented. We don't have to go into it. But in terms of like reflections, if I go back to the very, very beginning, I think in that episode, I probably said some things that at the time felt very true, but in hindsight, after experimenting for it's been like 7 or 8 years since I've been plant-based. I haven't changed my position all that much, which I'm proud of, because it means that I've been able to hold this lifestyle, let's call it, for 8 years, which shows that it stands a test of time. But there were some things that I think I've changed a little bit. One of them was that in that particular episode, I was new to plant-based and I was digesting all of this information from experts who, to me, I hadn't yet seen anyone challenge their positions. But one of the things that I was talking about was adopting a lower fat plant-based diet and how it's improved my insulin sensitivity. And again, at the time, it absolutely did that. But I think that I've changed my position a little bit since then, where I've increased my fat intake. I think at the time I was doing like 10 to 15% of total calories from fat, which is pretty low. It's not like crazy low that people can't do it, but in terms of sustainability and enjoyment, I couldn't hold on to that.
And was that decision to restrict total fat, all fats, because you thought you would have better diabetes management?
Yeah, I thought it would, improve my insulin sensitivity, allow me to control my blood glucose a bit easier. And also at the time, I thought it would help me to offset some of the cardiovascular disease risk that, unfortunately, when you get diagnosed with diabetes, no matter what the type, your risk for cardiovascular disease goes up. So I was like, well, this is a no-brainer. Adopt a diet that can improve my diabetes management and independently reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease.
And the cardiovascular disease part in particular, it's been a long time since we had that conversation, but I'm assuming you were influenced by like the Insulin studies and the Dean Ornish studies, where a lot of people were talking about these low-fat vegan diets as being the best diet for reversing cardiovascular disease was really the language at the time that was used then.
Exactly. And this is also another reflection, if I may cover it now. When you discover something new that is exciting and you feel like it's working and you feel like you've just found a solution or an answer that maybe other people don't know about, or it's the first time you've experienced it, I think I let my enthusiasm get a little bit ahead of the reality of the situation, which is research evolves. It takes time to really understand the effects of a dietary pattern or any change in your lifestyle or intervention. So I think my excitement and enthusiasm was slightly ahead of the reality.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately that conversation's played out a lot since then, right? And I think just to bring everyone up to speed, in case you haven't caught it, one of the limitations of that research, well, there's a few limitations really. And unless you double click on those studies and you're aware of the broader body of literature, then it would be easy just to accept it at face value that a vegan diet has been shown to independently reverse cardiovascular disease.
Yeah.
But there are issues, or there are limitations, I should say, and there are limitations of any study, but it's important, even when something confirms a belief or a bias that we all have, that we do go that extra step to kind of question the evidence that we're looking at and to understand the context. So Dean Ornish's study, it is a great study. It's a randomized controlled trial. It did look at a low-fat vegetarian diet, really. And in addition to changing diet, these participants stopped smoking, they started exercising, they meditated, they did practices to reduce stress. And compared to a control diet, they did have some regression based on the type of imaging that was done at the time, which is not the same as the imaging done today. But if we just accept that the imaging that they did in the 90s was accurate, there was some regression from that total lifestyle program. And they also had significantly less cardiovascular events, which is amazing. But what that study doesn't show you is what was the independent effect of the dietary change.
Right.
And it's compared to a control just eating a standard diet. It wasn't compared to a higher fat plant-based diet.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, and that's not me saying disparaging that study or Dean Ornish. It's just like that is what you can conclude from that study, is that better compared to just a control, this overall lifestyle intervention did better. And so if you want to go and adopt that overall lifestyle intervention compared to a standard diet and not exercising and stuff, then the evidence suggests that's going to be significantly better.
Yes, exactly.
And then with the Esselstyn study, that was unfortunately not randomized. So there is no strict control to compare against. And many of the subjects were taking lipid-lowering therapies. So if they're experiencing some plaque regression, let's say, it's difficult to know, was that the medication? Was that the diet? You really need to compare against a control group who is also on medications but not making that dietary change.
Right. But I think a big takeaway from that experience of looking at those studies, hearing people talk about it, was, where I can put up my hand and say I probably, not that I was wrong, but I would take something back, is that I remember giving a talk at a conference and I referenced the studies. I spoke about olive oil in a certain way that I don't speak about it today because, again, my enthusiasm was so high at the time. I was so excited to share what I'd learned and discovered that I didn't probably do the due diligence to dig deep enough into it. And to be honest, I don't have the skill set, the scientific literacy to understand cardiac research. You just kind of listen to the people who are proponents of a certain way and you sort of parrot it a little bit. I think I was guilty of that. And I would, if I could go back to that talk, I would probably take a few slides out. But it happens. I'm sure I'll do it again this year and in 5 years I'll change it again. But just trying to do my best not to, get overly excited about these things when you find them and be a bit more patient.
I have a related reflection, and it's to do with insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance, and dietary fat.
Okay.
So I think if you were to go back 5 or 7 years ago, I was a lot firmer on the contribution of saturated fat to type 2 diabetes. And if you ask me today, I still think saturated fat affects liver fat and insulin resistance more than polyunsaturated fat. I think we have evidence of that. But through conversations with people like Roy Taylor and even Christos Mantzoros from Harvard, it's become clear to me that the biggest driver, way above the type of fat you're eating, is the total amount of calories. And whether, we're talking about type 2 diabetes here, whether you're over your personal fat threshold. And if you're consuming tons of calories above your personal fat threshold, even if the dietary fat is polyunsaturated fats, doesn't matter. And there's an additive effect where calorie surplus plus lots of saturated fat is like the worst combination. But a calorie surplus still with a lot of plant-based fats is still going to be problematic for someone who goes above their personal fat threshold. And really, that's the greatest driver of the ectopic fat, the fat in the liver, fat getting into the pancreas. And then as Roy Taylor puts it, that twin cycle, which ends up for someone with type 2 diabetes, resulting in the pancreas essentially wearing out.
Right. But we do have studies showing that independent of calories, saturated fat can increase ectopic fat more than unsaturated.
100%. But the magnitude of effect compared to excess calories is way smaller.
Right.
So my evolution of my thinking, often I would lead with, got to cut down saturated fats because of this, and this. But the more I've learned about this, and just in terms of, I think, giving people better information that can really help them, understanding the magnitude is important. I mean, we were talking yesterday about like the bone mineral density stuff, and we might get there. But when you're thinking about, okay, there's a couple of different things someone could do here. They could address their calories and their body weight. They could address their dietary fat. If all the conversation is about the type of fat, they're missing the big picture that really the big rock and what's driving insulin resistance in the first place. Most of the fat in the liver and the pancreas is coming from being in a sustained energy surplus. And that's where finding a way to lose weight through lifestyle, plus or minus these like GLP-1 agonists now, which are really driving ectopic fat down, is the biggest lever that someone can pull.
That's a fair point. It's like putting the big rocks before the pebbles in the sand, right? Like that conversation, when you're trying to educate someone, the calorie surplus versus deficit is probably more important off the paddle racket.
I think if I'm being completely honest, it's almost like, because the data looking at heart disease is pretty convincing that saturated fats, particular types of saturated fats, are causal in the production of atherosclerosis. But it was almost like I was trying to find other ways to really drive home the benefits of reducing saturated fat. And I don't think that's even needed.
Yeah, because this is another reflection. If you are inaccurate or misleading with anything that you say because you're attached to a certain sort of ideology or a belief system, you do net harm overall because people just no longer believe you or want to listen to you. But if you're just straight up honest, the whole time, and if you can say exactly what you just said there, like where you think you may have gone wrong or how you would change your message, I think it's just more productive, right? When you're educating people. Otherwise, you can come across as like some of the carnivore crowd that we see online who speak in absolutes, and you begin to not believe anything that they say afterwards, especially if you can like massively debunk a statement or show some inconsistencies. And then it's like, well, I don't actually believe anything you say now, even if they start to speak truth. So I think it's dangerous just from a perspective of yourself, the way you educate. And I'm not telling people what order to do it in, like talk to your doctor. But if you can say to someone, let's try 12 months of a resistance training program, let's test before, test after, let's see how much bone density that you can increase in 12 months. Then you've built a habit and built a lifestyle. We can add medication and build it up even more.
Every new year, we talk about diets, workouts, habits. But the more I learn about health, the more I believe the best place to start is with a clear picture of what's happening inside your body. Consider it like a car service, but for your body. A routine check-in that helps you understand what's running well and what might need a little attention. That's why I use Function. Function gives you access to over 100 biomarkers each year. Things like hormones, inflammation, metabolic health, nutrients, and even environmental toxins. These are tests offered through Function, and they provide a far deeper understanding of your health than the average annual physical. When I got my first full panel back, some results were expected and others genuinely caught me off guard. Seeing that data and how it changed over time has helped me make more informed, confident decisions about my health. It's not about replacing your doctor, it's about being more informed when you walk into the room. Testing is fast and convenient through 2,000 plus lab locations across the United States. And the wild thing is that if you were to order all of these tests independently, you could easily spend over $10,000. Whereas Function makes it $365 a year, literally $1 a day, for ongoing access to your biomarkers and personalized insights based on your unique results, all tracked securely on the Function platform. This new year, give yourself the gift of clarity, understanding what's actually going on inside your body and making evidence-based lifestyle changes from there. Learn more and join using my link at functionhealth.com/Simon Hill and use the gift code SIMON25 for a $25 credit towards your membership. I want to play this clip you sent me.
I sent this?
How would you approach this if you were 65 and wanting to improve your bone mineral density?
Well, the unfortunate truth is that through exercise, we probably aren't improving our bone density anymore at that age because bone mass is peaking in our 20s. So we're really trying to hold on to what we have as opposed to try to gain more. And that makes bone adaptations distinct from muscle adaptations. But certainly, we have really powerful anti-osteoporotic medications.
Okay, so that clip is from episode 391 with Dr. Lauren Colenso-Semple, who I think overall did a pretty great job shining some light on an area of health and fitness where there has been some stretching of the evidence, let's say. And you brought it up with me yesterday. You said, hey, that part of the conversation where Lauren said, once you get to 65 or older as a woman, exercise is not going to increase bone mineral density. That when you heard that, it kind of sounded like a little bit of an alarm went off for you.
Yeah. I felt like the message was a little bit disempowering because I was thinking about your mom and my mom and any other postmenopausal woman who's listening, thinking, oh, well, what's the point in going to the gym if I can't gain any bone density or increase my bone mass? So it was disempowering and sort of demotivating in a way. But I also think it's just factually incorrect because even the trial that you guys were talking about, the Lift More trial, they did increase their bone density. Women, I think the cutoff was like age 58 and older. So most women in their 60s. If you look at the intervention group who did the high impact, high intensity resistance training, compared to the control group who did a bodyweight home program, they did increase their bone density.
And the important point there that you're making, they didn't just experience less bone loss. They actually, from the baseline of the study, those people in the intervention group, their bone density went up in absolute amount.
Correct. Their T-score improved. They had a percent increase, between 0 point something percent up to, I think it was about 2.9 or 3.9% from memory on average. Some individuals gained even more than that.
It was like 0 to 12%,
right?
You said.
Yeah. So some people in the study gained up to 12% at certain sites. I think it was the femoral neck in some individuals. But I think the message around resistance training for women who are trying to either prevent further bone loss or potentially increase bone mass, it's a bigger conversation than just medication is better. Don't worry about doing resistance training. It doesn't do much. That's the sort of...
To her point though, I think in that clip, it might sound like that was her view. I think there are other parts of that conversation where she speaks to the benefits of resistance training. It's just that when it got to that specific section, like when I listened back to that, when you brought it to my attention, it did seem to contradict the data that you're putting forward. I think, and we messaged her, we reached out to her yesterday. I think her main point here is that from an increasing bone mineral density point of view, the magnitude of increase is much greater with medications than on average with exercise.
Which I would agree with. But the conversation is way broader than that. And I think that even in that study, there's I think it's like table 4 looks at non-bone related metrics of like function, physical function, like profound increases in things that were not even specific to the program. Like the program was doing deadlifts, squats, overhead press, and jumping chin-ups with a drop down to the ground, right? For the high impact, high velocity. The program was pretty much 8 months of exactly that, like 5 by 5, 5 reps, 5 sets of each exercise. Yet when they did the functional testing of like sit to stand, reaction time, vertical jump, all of these parameters increased dramatically, right? And those are the functional tests that, ideally would prevent the fall from happening in the first place. So even if you do a program that's suboptimal for bone health or laying down new bone, let's say the loading's not enough or the reps are too high or the strain's not adequate, the improvement in coordination, balance, mobility, confidence, I think it just outweighs any of the sort of like, the parts of the program that aren't optimal. I think it is still beneficial on the net.
Yeah, it's reductionist to look at an exercise program and a single outcome like bone mineral density and ask the question, is this exercise program good for that person's frailty and risk of falls and fractures?
Right.
Which is really what if a 65-year-old woman is listening to this podcast right now, your mum or my mum, they don't care about their bone mineral density, the number so much. They care about the outcome. Are they going to fall? And should they fall, are they going to fracture a bone?
Exactly.
Right. And the other thing that I think is not captured in bone mineral density is that exercise can affect bone geometry, which we know is also related to risk of fracture.
Right.
So even if exercise, I think in that Liftmore, I think
that's a good point. Actually,
it was 0 to 2% on average.
Yeah.
Increase in bone mineral density.
Right.
But they weren't even measuring what happened to bone geometry.
That's a good point. Right. You can only, what you measure is what you know, right? If you're not measuring geometry, then you don't actually know sort of the outcome data that you're saying, right? If someone falls, if they have better bone geometry, what are the risk of fracture?
And it seems from the evidence, if you can tolerate the medications, which increase bone mineral density by, some of them were like 10%, maybe more.
It was more. Yeah.
Right. 10 or 15%.
Yeah.
If you can tolerate them, and there are a range of different options, plus exercise is like the best way to combat this problem.
Yes. And even if the magnitude of effect from the resistance training in combination with medication is very small, right? You get this nice big bang for your buck when it comes to the medication, and the resistance training on top of that is like tiny. You're still getting all of the other things we just spoke about. Increased muscle size, the metabolic benefits of having more muscle on your frame, tendon strength, balance coordination, joy of moving, dopamine. Like there's so many reasons to exercise. And I would even argue that there are things in the Liftmore trial that could have made those results look even better. So they had a 0 to, let's call it roughly 3% increase in bone density on average. And the control group had an average loss of bone. So they, on average, lost, I think it was like 1 to 3%.
Which is like just naturally what occurs if you're not training over time with age.
Yes, but with that said, they were training, which is, again, something we need to talk about. They were doing a home bodyweight program that wasn't loaded appropriately. And it was for that reason. It was sort of less than 60% of 1RM, 10 to 15 reps, right? Bone is not like muscle, right? Muscle, you can build muscle at a very wide range of loading, right? You can do high reps, you can do low reps, light load, heavy load. If your proximity to failure is, roughly 1 or 2 reps or close to failure, you can build muscle. Bone is different. There's a strain. You've got to hit it.
You're a testament to that. Very light load. I'm saying the weights. High reps.
Mate, do you want to go try to do a muscle up after this? We'll see what happens. No, so the control group, the reason why they didn't really gain or prevent bone loss is it just wasn't loaded properly, right? It was body weight at home. So I think it's very important that you understand the loading. But the trial itself, they only did 4 moves. Bone likes novel stimulus, different directions, different, stresses on the bone. So it stimulates, more bone growth. I would argue that if they had that familiarization phase of like a month or 2, getting used to the 5x5, getting used to the movements, and then towards the back end of the program, like let's say they extended it for another 3 months, it was an 8-month trial, or even up to 12 months, with novel stimulus of different directions. Instead of the drop jump with the chin up, skaters side to side, or, just other exercises, I think they may have even seen more bone density improvements.
That's also an important point, is that a lot of the drug trials, looking at the bone drugs, those are like 12 to 24 months long.
Yes.
But that exercise, the Lift More trial, which is the one that's cited a lot, when you remove the ramp up period, it's like just a little bit over half a year.
Yeah, they were training at about 85% of their 1RM for only 5 months of the 8 months. The first 3 months, they ramped them up slowly, which is very intelligent because they started about 60% of 1RM, ramped it slowly up to 85. But once they hit 85, which is a pretty heavy load, they held that for about 5 months. Now, imagine if they had extended the trial for a few more months at that same load and had new high-impact exercises. I don't know. My gut would say that they would probably see even better results.
Can you remind people, if they are doing the 5 sets of 5 reps, how they can gauge if it's an effective set for the purpose of increasing bone mineral density?
Okay, yeah. So a 5x5 protocol for bone health.
Yes. So if again, the listener's doing that program, but she or he is wondering, am I choosing the right weight? Am I actually getting enough force through the bone to get it to adapt? How do you troubleshoot that?
This is actually way trickier than people think, because if you're dealing with a population who are not experienced in the gym, and you're saying to them, you're going to be training at 85% of your 1 rep max. What's your 1 rep max? Who knows their 1 rep max? So what do you have to do? You have to do a testing. How safe is it to test someone with their 1 rep max and they're in their 60s, they've never stepped foot in the gym?
Right. Or osteoporosis.
So it's prediction, it's calculations. We're hoping that we can roughly guess. Maybe we do a set that is like testing a rep range of 6 to 10 at a lighter load, and then we use a calculation to figure out their 1 rep max. But if they're doing deadlifts and squats, there's no way you're going to get, like my mom ain't going in the gym and doing a 1 rep max deadlift. She's never done a deadlift before. So it's actually very hard to program load. And I think that the main thing is that you get this rough estimation of what your 1 rep max is, and you start at what this trial did. You start at 60% or 70%, right? When you do 5 reps with 60%, you could probably do 12 reps with that load, right? So you're leaving a lot of reps in the tank. Now, if you're trying to build muscle, that's suboptimal. But for bone, it actually doesn't really matter because the bone is adapting to strain, right? So you just got to hit that threshold of strain, so above what is just everyday life. So 60% of your 1 rep max exceeds just general life stresses of standing up out of a chair, walking to your car, picking up groceries. So that's enough of a stimulus. But bone gets bored very easily. So if you just held 60% of your 1 rep max and did a 5x5 for 12 months, there's no progressive overload built in. So you have to slowly, incrementally increase. So I guess the ways people can do it is you can use an RPE scale, which is sort of like a scale of sort of 1 to 10, how difficult the set is. That scale works well when you're thinking about building muscle mass, but for bone, it's tough because, like I said, when you're lifting 60% of your 1 rep max, you're leaving reps in the tank. So your RPE, it's not going to feel like a hard set. You're going to end your set and you're going to go, you know what? It was probably like a 5 out of 10. But for the first 4 weeks, that's fine. You're learning the skill. And that was the point in this. So if it's your first time in the gym, if I'm talking to my mom, I'm saying, get used to doing a deadlift and a squat, or use machines. You don't have to do deadlift and squats. You can use safe machines that are built so you can't really, at least slightly reduce the risk of injury. But I would just be saying, get used to the movements, leave some reps in the tank, it's fine. Every 2 to 4 weeks, we add a bit of load. And eventually when you get to 85%, that RPE is not going to be a 5 out of 10. You're going to be more like an 8 out of 10 by that point.
Okay, so that's clear. So the main reason that you wanted to bring this up was that you felt the message was disempowering. So you just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think we get myopic in science and research, and we look at an outcome and we try to isolate an outcome and build a program for one outcome, and we tend to ignore the byproducts and the myriad of benefits that happen aside from that. And when I know you guys were having a conversation specifically about bone, and I'm not having a go at Lauren. I think she actually had, it was a great episode. I just think that I would like to double click, and I bet you if she was back in the chair, she would probably double click on this as well.
She's coming back on.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
Just to explain the benefits go well beyond, benefits of exercise go well beyond just bone metrics.
And in her fairness, I think some of it is probably the way the conversation unfolded, because we'd spoken about resistance training and muscle earlier, and maybe she was just not doubling back to go back over that. But the point where I think fundamentally, is not 100% accurate is that the Lift More trial did see an absolute increase in bone mineral density to varying degrees in subjects. And yes, medications, the magnitude of effect on the average can be greater, but we also don't want to undersell the potential effects of exercise, even just for bone, because that small increase in bone mineral density, it actually could be really important for someone, and it could be even more important for someone if they're not tolerating medications.
Exactly. And I also think that if you can lay down that lifestyle part first, being exercise, before you jump on the medication, and I'm not telling people what order to do it in, like talk to your doctor, but if you can say to someone, let's try 12 months of a resistance training program, let's test before, test after, let's see how much bone density that you can increase in 12 months, then you've built a habit and built a lifestyle. We can add medication and build it up even more.
I think it's going to depend on, I imagine the doctor's going to look at their T-score and their risk of having a fall.
Of course.
How frail are they?
Right.
How much time do we have? Do we have, is it safe for us to wait this year?
Right.
Or is this person super high risk, and if they fracture their hip, they end up in hospital and have a high risk of mortality?
100%. And that's why I'm not a doctor.
So this is juggling, all these things need to be kind of weighed up.
Yeah, exactly. But I do like the idea of empowering people to pick a lifestyle that's going to actually benefit them for the thing they're looking at, which is bone, but also so many other things. And then when you take medication, you might see even bigger benefits, and you can take that with you for the rest of your life.
It's always extra benefits with exercise.
Yeah.
Luke Van Loon, his team, compared an omnivorous diet to a vegan diet. Sorry, an omnivorous meal at this stage, a single meal, 0.45 grams per kilogram of protein, which if you had across 3 meals would be 1.2 grams per kilogram. This is just looking at a single meal, the acute post-meal muscle protein synthesis. In that study, muscle protein synthesis was significantly greater in the omnivorous diet after the omnivorous meal in these subjects. And that was their hypothesis going into it. So despite their hypothesis, they walked away from that study thinking maybe when you only look at the few hours post-meal, the animal protein meal is performing better. But the plant protein meal, for whatever reason, maybe it has like less of an acute spike in muscle protein synthesis, but it stays up for longer. And so the area under the curve is still the same or not significantly different. Do you ever get that mid-afternoon crash or finish a workout with a pounding headache? A lot of times this is not caffeine that you need. It's electrolytes. And that's where Element comes in. Each serving delivers the key electrolytes that your body runs on, sodium, potassium, and magnesium, in the ratio that your cells actually need. I've been using Element daily, about a third of a sachet on lighter training days, and closer to half a sachet per hour when I'm doing more intensive activity. Element keeps me clear-headed, seems to improve my recovery, and I sleep better too. What I also love about Element is that it contains 0 added sugars. Personally, I'd rather get my carbohydrates around training from whole fruit. Element just gives me the electrolytes I actually need and nothing more. And the flavors are genuinely good. Raspberry and citrus salt being my current go-tos. You can try it for yourself, and right now with any purchase, Element will send you a free sample pack of their most popular flavors. Just head to drinkelement.com/Simon. That's DRINKLMNT/Simon. I would like to see a study that, to my knowledge, I don't think this has been done, that looks at postmenopausal women with, say, osteopenia on medications plus exercise versus just medications, looking at risk of fall and fracture.
Yeah, because we know, we can speculate that if we're only looking at bone, the outcomes will be better if you're taking the medication, right? Are you saying medication in both cases, one with a resistance training program?
Yes, and instead of the outcome of interest being bone mineral density.
Got you.
Right?
Right.
because you might not see a huge difference in bone mineral density between those two groups because the medications are doing that heavy lifting. So the addition of exercise maybe doesn't affect bone mineral density that much in that context. But let's shift the outcome to the outcome again that people care about. Falls fracture. Okay. Now you start to see the independent effect of exercise on the outcome that these women care most about.
Avoid the crash, basically. Yeah. And that study doesn't exist, to our knowledge.
Walk us through that analogy.
I can't. I would never try to do it right. I've got so many bad analogies in my head right now. Like, mate, I've been thinking, even last night, I was like, oh, I've got a great one. And then I woke up in the morning and I played it back to myself. I'm like, that's just terrible.
A few days ago, I had Dr. Luke Van Loon, who's actually sitting in that seat right there.
Yeah.
He's from Maastricht University in the Netherlands, actually. And he's a protein scientist. So I was interested in studies that he's performed with his group looking at how different types of protein affect muscle protein synthesis, which is as you know, is a acute response in muscle tissue and somewhat correlates to growth of the muscle. And the backstory here, this is a reflection, I guess. This is what I wrote my first Substack on, actually.
Yep.
That'll be published next week. The backstory here is their papers have been written by like Stuart Phillips and other experts in this space that create, I think, a pretty compelling case for someone who is 65 plus, really anyone, to be consuming at least 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram. And the basis of that research is a body of studies comparing 1.2 down to the RDA of like 0.8 and looking at lean body mass outcomes like that. And a question that has not been answered to date, actually that Stuart Phillips and his colleagues wrote about in this paper where they were recommending 1.2 grams, was at that level of protein intake, particularly for an older person who has some anabolic resistance, let's say less sensitivity to protein, is plant protein going to be sufficient to protect that person against sarcopenia? And there hadn't really been any studies looking at this demographic, comparing an omnivorous diet to a vegan diet and looking at muscle protein synthesis or strength and hypertrophy. Yeah. So all the studies that we've had have been on healthy adults, pretty much, or single meals, not looking at a entire dietary pattern,
Right.
like maybe looking at an isolated whey versus pea protein, but in the background of omnivorous diets,
Right.
which doesn't tell us exactly what we're trying to answer here. How does a diet that's omnivorous, so a mix of animal and plant protein, about 60% of that's typically is animal protein, how does that compare to a diet where 100% of the protein is coming from plants at a protein intake level of about 1.2 grams per kilogram? And we hadn't had a study that had looked at this until 2024, where Luke Van Loon and his team compared an omnivorous diet to a vegan diet. Sorry, an omnivorous meal at this stage, a single meal, 0.45 grams per kilogram
Of protein.
Which if you had across 3 meals would be 1.2 grams per kilogram. This is just looking at a single meal, the acute post-meal muscle protein synthesis in these older subjects. They're about 70 years old. And that one diet that was omnivorous had 60% of protein from animal foods, 40 from plant, and then the other diet was 100% from plant. In that study, muscle protein synthesis was significantly greater in the omnivorous diet after the omnivorous meal in these subjects. And that was their hypothesis going into it, because animal protein is thought to have a superior amino acid kind of ratio, and in particular, a higher concentration of leucine, which is considered to be important for triggering muscle protein synthesis. They then wanted to conduct another study. Instead of looking at just a post-meal muscle protein synthesis, they wanted to look at daily muscle protein synthesis over 10 days and a crossover trial. So every participant, again, these were 72-year-old participants on average, got to do an omnivorous diet and a vegan diet. This was at a daily intake of about 1.2 grams per kilogram protein. And they're measuring that daily muscle protein synthesis response. There was no significant difference between the two groups. So despite their hypothesis, they walked away from that study thinking maybe when you only look at the few hours post-meal, the animal protein meal is performing better, but the plant protein meal, for whatever reason, maybe it has like less of an acute spike in muscle protein synthesis, but it stays up for longer. And so the area under the curve is still the same or not significantly different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of fascinating to think that on a meal-to-meal basis, how different the area under the curve can be. But when you extrapolate it across 10 days, it may be meaningless.
Right. So you might look at that study, and I've spoken about this with Dr. Nagra, and kind of conclude that, okay, elderly subjects can get the same kind of muscle protein synthesis response consuming a diet with 100% plant protein as long as they are at 1.2 grams per kilogram. And that would have a small caveat that that study is not as good as a study that goes out longer and looks at hypertrophy or strength. That needs to be conducted. But this is where I think Dr. Luke Van Loon, my conversation with him, it gave me pause. And it was a concept that I'm aware of, but to hear him talk about what he's seen with these subjects, I think it's something that we should talk about and double click on. And I want to get your thoughts on it. So the more controlled a study is, often the less generalizable it is to the real world, but it's more reliable. So if I bring people into a study and I feed them all the meals, I can get a very clear understanding of how those meals are affecting whatever outcome. But that's different to if I run a study and I don't supply all the meals to you. I just tell you how I want you to eat and you go and eat according to that based on your behavior. Now we introduce behavior.
I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
Okay. And a good example of two scientists who do very different research, but on the same area, Kevin Hall runs tightly controlled metabolic ward studies on weight loss. He can feed people meals. He knows exactly what they eat, what they don't eat, can control it all. But then Chris Gardner also runs low carb versus low fat diets, but out in the real world where he just has a dietitian educating people when they go out and make their own meals. And the results in a metabolic ward do not often reflect what happens in the real world.
Because it doesn't account for behavior and habit.
Right. So in many ways, the way I think about it is like the metabolic ward shows what's possible, but it's not necessarily the probable outcome.
Right. And it can help understand a mechanism, but not necessarily a long-term outcome.
Yes. And some people will say, oh, but that study out in the real world, they didn't eat the way that they said outlined in their methods. And it's like, well, they didn't, but they actually ate the way that people are going to eat when given that advice. So what do you care about?
Exactly.
So where he brought some new information to light here was that after that 10-day study that I just shared, no significant difference in muscle protein synthesis. They ran the study again. Same population, 72, whatever age. This time, just instructed them how to eat. And you're going to go away and do your own shopping and meal prep. This hasn't been published, so I should put a little caveat asterisk next to it. So it's got to go through peer review. Right. So we're getting these findings early, but I think there's enough literature out there to support these results at a high level, at least for us to discuss now. And I think it draws attention to something for people that are eating this way. What do you think happened?
I think for people in their 70s, was this a whole food diet? Can they supplement with protein powder? Or did they?
That's a very good question. It was a majority whole food, and the omnivorous diet, to be clear, also was whole food representative of the Dutch National Dietary Guidelines. So they didn't do like a crappy omnivorous diet or anything. It was a high quality.
Okay.
And the plant-based vegan diet, it wasn't completely unprocessed. There was soy yogurt in there.
Okay.
There were a few ways to kind of increase the protein intake. That was in the meals that were supplied.
Yeah. But in the wild,
people
story.
are going out and buying their own food.
Okay. Thinking about this a few different ways, but my initial gut feel is that a 75-year-old, let's say, who is told to eat a plant-based diet from Whole Foods, who may have an appetite that wasn't as strong as when they were in their 30s or 40s, is going to struggle to eat 1.2 grams of protein per kilo from Whole Foods just purely by not being able to eat enough total food and probably total calories. They may lose weight, incidentally. I think that this could easily be offset with being told to eat a protein powder or being, say, a scoop a day just to bulletproof the amino acids and the total protein to hit a target. But I feel like in the wild, the omnivorous diet would outperform.
This summarized my Substack really nicely.
Actually.
As predicted, one of the positive side effects of eating more plant-based is weight loss.
Right. Without trying.
For most people
Right.
in Western populations who are at high risk of cardiometabolic conditions, who have excessive ectopic fat,
right,
that side effect is really beneficial. One of the downsides, as you say, is like as people are getting older, generally their appetite's lower, particularly if they're not exercising. Appetite's even lower. So that's something we could discuss here.
Right.
Ways to have a greater appetite.
Yes.
And as a result, the vegans were consuming less total calories, losing some weight, and less protein. And that is consistent. If you look at vegan populations and look at older people in those populations, protein intake in some studies is like around 0.8, 0.9 grams per kilogram. And the reason I bring this up is, one, I think it's silly just to dig your head in the sand. I think it's great that the controlled study exists to show you what's possible.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
I also think if you're 65 plus and eating a completely plant-based diet, you need to be thoughtful and have some intentionality.
Right.
Like you said, there are ways to optimize protein intake so you do get to 1.2 grams per kilogram and you get that same anabolic response. And that way you're protecting yourself with your diet against cardiometabolic disease, but you're protecting yourself against frailty and fractures. And if there is a consistent long-term negative effect of plant-based diets on an outcome, it is fractures. It's shown up in multiple studies, higher risk of fractures. And people there's a lot of different arguments about that data, about how good it is. And are these people do they have lower bone mineral density simply because they're lighter? Is often a claim that I see, but there's really no arguing that their protein intake is lower than omnivores in these populations. And it's lower than that 1.2 grams per kilogram, where we've seen from a muscle protein synthesis response, there's no significant difference. If you can, within the context of a mostly whole food plant-based diet, strategically add some of these processed foods in, and yes, they're processed, but they help you get to that optimal protein intake, then they can be absolutely healthy for you.
Yeah, it comes back to outcomes. We talk about this all the time. If adding an ultra-processed food into your diet helps you to achieve more muscle mass and bone health and you can live a longer, healthier life, I'll take it.
Don't worry about the label.
Yeah, forget about the label.
My nutrition philosophy has always been pretty simple. Start with a healthy, plant-rich dietary pattern built around whole foods. That is the single most important nutrition move that you can make when it comes to optimizing your health. But even with a great diet, even with the best diet out there, many of us are still susceptible to falling short on our intake of key essential nutrients. That's where IM8 Daily Ultimate Essentials comes in. Daily Ultimate Essentials was formulated by yours truly, alongside previous guests of The Proof, Dr. Dawn Mussalem, Dr. Suzanne Devkota, and Dr. David Katz. With the right dosage and forms of essential nutrients like vitamin D3, B12, iodine, selenium, zinc, and choline, IM8 was formulated to help you optimize your essential nutrient intake to support your energy levels, cognition, mood, metabolism, and overall well-being. It's also NSF certified for sport, which means that every ingredient is third-party tested before blending and every single batch is tested after blending to confirm that the active ingredients on the label are in the product in the right quantities and nothing more. In a world where supplements are underregulated and many supplement companies are cutting corners to keep their costs down and boost their profits, it makes sense to me to buy supplements that are NSF certified for sport where possible. For listeners of The Proof, IM8 is offering 10% off your first order. Head to im8health.com and use the code Simon at checkout. That's im8health.com, code Simon, for foundational nutrition that's clinically backed, tested for purity, and built for performance.
This ties nicely to a reflection that I didn't get to talk about before. Was over the last 8 years, the way that I share my message about the benefits of a plant-based diet has changed quite a lot. In the beginning, I think I made it sound too easy to get enough protein. And I didn't say, well, if you're in your 20s or 30s, it's different to when you're in your 70s and all of the nuances we just discussed right then. I made it sound way too easy. Like it was this silver bullet because again, I was so excited that it was working for me. But I think these are the conversations that you have to have where if you make something sound too easy for the wrong person, then they fail at it and then they blame it. They go, well, it doesn't work. I've tried plant-based. My bone density got worse. I lost muscle, etc.
And also imagine like hospitals is a place where people lose a lot of muscle quickly when they're immobilized. How many of those hospitals do you think is set up to feed someone a completely plant-based diet and get them 1.2 grams per kilogram?
I think without supplementation, like we discussed, like either a meal replacement shake or a protein fortified
or eating
food.
seitan, TVP.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Definitely tofu.
You're going to get a handful of chickpeas in a little curry with some rice. You're not even close to those targets that you just mentioned.
So I think if you're listening and you are thinking, I'm in that age group or I'm approaching it, I wonder where I fall here, I would start with an audit of like, where are you currently landing? So track 3 or 4 days of eating, just exactly how you eat normally. Plug it in to Chronometer or whatever app and just see where you're landing. And are you at 1.2 grams per kilogram or not? And if you're south of that, then start to look to some of these foods that you're bringing up, like a good protein powder, which if you have low appetite and you don't want to consume too many calories, if calories are something you're keeping an eye on for body weight purposes, that's where a protein powder becomes really helpful.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can only imagine how hard it can be for some people in their 70s to hit those targets of purely whole foods because I lean on protein fortified foods and supplements pretty much every day just to take the digestive stress off trying to eat. I can sometimes eat like 80 grams of fiber in a day, right? So I think even for me in my 30s, I'm still leaning on supplements, and I can already hear the carnivores saying that just shows that plant-based is inferior. You have to supplement to get your protein. You don't. You can get it from whole foods. It just takes a little bit more planning. You've got to slowly ramp up your digestion to be able to tolerate so much fiber. And again, this is just us talking about it in the context of building muscle, right? When it comes to incidental weight loss and appetite regulation, I mean, we know that there's plenty of studies showing that a plant-based diet high in fiber makes it so much easier. And then all the other chronic diseases that it ticks off, So, but that is a really interesting study. So when does that actually come out? The result of the second go?
I got the feeling it's probably not out for another year or so.
Okay. So you got a sneak peek.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I think the other kind of pushback that some people may have as they hear you talk about protein powder is that, surely that's not natural. Like we're not designed, that's often what you'll hear, we're not designed to consume those kind of foods that come out of a factory. And I think the simplest just response to that is that if we want to say designed is evolution, your body, we have not evolved to get to 60, 70, and 80 with strong bones and without sarcopenia. There's no selection pressure on that, right? We've simply evolved to get to an age where we're healthy enough to procreate. And anything after that is about optimization. And that's where we can really start to fine tune and use science, right? And it may be that something that wasn't available to Homo erectus is actually advantageous and helps you in your 60s, 70s, and 80s be healthy. Homo erectus didn't have to worry about that.
Right. Yeah, the longevity conversation is completely different to making it to the age to be able to reproduce. question, if these subjects who are in their 70s, who are eating a whole food plant-based diet, are struggling to hit 1.2 grams per kilo, can they offset that sort of, I don't want to call it anabolic resistance, but like not hitting that target of increasing MPS by doing resistance training? Does that resensitize them so that at a lower total protein, they can actually build equivalent muscle to an omnivore?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We spoke about that though. There is definitely a hypothesis out there. And I actually think I spoke about this with Luke after the episode, where he's interested in the exact question you're asking. If you put people through resistance training who haven't resistance trained before, do they need less protein because they're more sensitive?
Right. But we also know that anabolic resistance sort of increases as you get older.
Yeah. I think for now, until we know that answer, I would err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
And do resistance training and get your protein to 1.2 grams per kilogram.
And don't be scared to lean on supplements and shakes to get you there.
And the other point I would say about the supplements or a food like seitan, some of these foods we might describe as more processed or even ultra processed, like a high protein plant-based milk, right, is considered ultra processed just by definition of the way it's made. But ultra processed is a very broad, diverse range of foods.
Oh, yeah.
And just because the headlines say ultra processed foods, increasing risk of cancer and obesity and whatever, it's not that all the foods in that category
you've got to
doing that.
Think critically. Like,
it's the foods that are calorie dense,
correct,
are hyperpalatable. So what makes them hyperpalatable? High sodium, high sugar, and then high fat. And the fat that is really a problem is the saturated fats in ultra processed foods. It's not the seed oils, despite what some people may lead you to believe. But the AHA put out a review on ultra-processed foods recently, and they made that point abundantly clear. Like, not all ultra-processed foods are created equal.
100%.
So if you can, within the context of a mostly whole food plant-based diet, strategically add some of these processed foods in, and yes, they're processed, but they help you get to that optimal protein intake, then they can be absolutely healthy for you.
Yeah, it comes back to outcomes. We talk about this all the time. Like if adding an ultra-processed food into your diet helps you to achieve more muscle mass and bone health and you can live a longer, healthier life, I'll take it.
Don't worry about the label.
Yeah, forget about the label.
The main reason that I think this is important to bring up, and it kind of comes back to what your reflection was about how you maybe spoke about protein earlier. And I don't think you ever put it this way, but there are some doctors in the plant-based space who will say, don't even worry about protein. Just eat enough calories and it takes care of itself.
Yeah.
And if you are just filling up on chickpeas and kidney beans and broccoli and rice and fruit, all healthy foods,
yep,
it's going to be very hard for you to be just naturally landing at 1.2 grams per kilo.
Yeah.
There'll be a very small percentage of people that would get there.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
And if they were getting there, I bet you they're the people that are doing a lot of exercise, that have a bigger appetite.
Let's relate this to a blue zone then. If you're sort of looking at a blue zone population who don't really perform structured resistance training like we do here, they eat a mostly plant-based diet, and they're certainly not thinking about, optimizing protein intake at every meal to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. They truly just eat a pattern. It's cultural, it's traditional, it's about the food, not the macronutrient. When they look at a plate, they're not looking at protein, carbs, and fat. They're not seeing this mathematical equation like we are, or us science dorks, or even for me with my diabetes. Like when I look at a meal, when I sit down for a meal, I'm seeing numbers. And that's one of the things, this is total segue, but one of the things about diabetes that actually has bothered me, that I hate, is it turned food into a maths equation. I'm trying to see protein, carbs, and fats, how they interact, how much insulin do I need, did I dose correctly? And you sort of lose the joy of eating food. Like sometimes I think we get so focused on these macros and micros that we forget about the broader pattern. Is the trade-off worth it to say to somebody, you know what, just eat the whole food plant-based diet. Don't worry so much about the numbers. Have variety, have diversity, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, have an active lifestyle. You'll probably live a long, healthy life and avoid the risk of many chronic diseases, but you may also not be optimizing your muscle mass and bone strength.
I think we are doing an injustice to community listeners by not sharing this information. And if you're going to say, just consume a diet and, don't worry about tracking protein or being thoughtful about protein intake, I think the responsible message is to recommend people consume a Mediterranean diet.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
As you go from a Mediterranean to a more plant-exclusive diet, and there are really good motivating reasons for one to do that at an individual level. As you do that, you need to be more intentional about certain things. And I think it's irresponsible to say, just to eat a plant-exclusive diet and we don't want you to focus on protein or any micronutrients because that might create a bad relationship with food. If someone has issues with tracking protein for a few days or thinking about micronutrients and it is creating a bad relationship with food, it might not be the best dietary pattern for them.
Yeah. I don't think the message is don't focus on protein. It's still responsible enough that it's include foods that we know, plant foods that contain protein like tofu, tempeh, seitan. But it's the micromanagement of like measuring serving sizes, getting 30 grams per meal and hitting these targets that can take the joy out of food for people.
I don't think you need to do that though. I think once you do an audit, you see where you're landing. How far are you falling short? Okay, I'm falling short by 20, 30 grams a day.
Right. Well, that's a scoop of protein.
Yeah. How do I make up that difference?
Right.
Okay, cool. Do it for a week, track your protein. Yeah, I'm getting there. And then it's almost set and forget.
Yeah, it's true. You can.
I don't track my protein intake.
No, but you have a good. Your literacy level, your nutritional literacy is so high that you can very easily.
What I'm saying is, I think for someone who's 65 plus, as a health educator, it's irresponsible to recommend that person consumes a completely vegan diet without any scientific nutrition literacy.
I agree.
Unless someone's preparing their food for them.
No, I think that's absolutely a fair position. I agree with that. I think that this message can go a couple of ways. I think that some people are going to hear the message of this study and go, it's way easier to hit your protein target when you're in your 70s if you do an omnivorous diet. And then you're going to see a lot of people go, well, plant-based is healthy, but I'm just going to go for this because it's easy to get my protein. And then they're leaving other things on the table like reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, etc. And this actually is another reflection. The other thing that I don't think it accounts for is when I first went plant-based, the reason, as you know, you're a huge part of it, probably the biggest part, but the reason I went plant-based was for health reasons. I went plant-based to help manage my diabetes and try something different. I tried the keto diet, I've tried the paleo diet. It wasn't working to the level that I wanted. It was time to try something else. That trigger was health-related, but very quickly evolved into a strong pull to ethics and environment. Over the years, that environmental and ethical and animal consideration, it's not that I've drifted away from it, but the pull that I had in the beginning was so strong and emotive, and I could not imagine not just like helping people to wake up to like what we're doing to the animals, right? Sometimes I think when we get so science-centric and so protein-focused and this and that, we completely avoid the conversation of animal ethics and environment, which I feel like over the last 8 years, I used to argue in comment sections and try to scream to the masses, like, God, you got to see this. Like, look what's happening. And then all of a sudden, I just, I don't want to deal with notifications from all these haters and arguing. And it just got so exhausting that I stopped. And that's sort of one of the things that I've reflected on.
It is tiring. And I felt that. But what I would say is that if we want more people to eat plant-exclusive diets that are, it's not debatable, they're better for the environment.
Right.
I know it is
debatable. Very debatable. Have you been on the internet?
From a truly academic perspective,
no.
I do not think it's debatable. Yeah. It uses substantially less land, this produces substantially less greenhouse gases, causes substantially less eutrophication, ocean acidification, like the list goes on and on and on. And we could bury our head in the sands on that piece. But and from an ethical point of view, that's also clear as day in my view. But the best way to inspire more people to consume a completely plant-based diet is to have healthy people that are consuming a completely plant-based diet. Yeah. Right? Because most people are intrinsically motivated. It's what's in it for me. Before planetary health and before animals, People think about themselves. And that is human nature. That is a survival adaptation, right? It's a selfishness that has helped our species. And so people need to be able to look to 60, 70, 80-year-olds that are thriving and are not frail and not at an increased risk of fracture. A population who has, yes, low heart disease, lower risk of cancer, but is also moving through their environment and doing well from a physical point of view.
Yeah, that is a very good point. That it comes back to the responsibility of the educator, right? So even just this conversation, just saying, again, just full 360, right? The first study that you presented was about what we know is possible. The second study is behavioral, and this is what happens in the wild. If we know this is possible, it is our responsibility to give people the tools and resources to achieve that outcome if they want it. And there are probably a lot of people who do want that, but just don't know how to get there.
That's also, I think, a gripe I have of other health communicators who don't even present the data that shows that a completely plant-based diet is as good as an omnivorous diet for hypertrophy or strength. There are communicators out there who, when speaking just about healthy adults and these outcomes, are just promoting animal protein because it's superior, because it's easier. But I think we do have a responsibility to give people the information and at the same time have a caveat. Talk about the fact that it might require a little bit more intentionality. You might need to be a little more strategic with the food selection because you're going to be eating more fiber and you're not going to be as full. And it just seems a bit more of a 360-degree conversation for me because it's how are we optimizing for many things. How are we optimizing for Drew to have clean arteries? How are we optimizing for you to not have fat in your liver? How are we optimizing for you to have strong bones, strong ligaments, muscles, to be doing as little harm to planet and to animals along the way?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly, you just summarized pretty much perfectly why I am plant-based 8 years later. I feel like the list of benefits is so long that you tick off so many things and beyond self. I think that's the main thing. It's like sometimes when you find a dietary pattern that motivates you to stay on track beyond self, beyond your health, it ends up keeping you on that path longer and you still get the benefits of the person. It's like my diabetes management has been fantastic for 8 years, but I'll go through waves where I'm not even really thinking all that much about health, but I'm thinking about how to do my best for environmental choices and animal ethics and those kinds of things. And I think when you've got multiple things that motivate you, it's much easier to stay on track. But you also do need to know potential downsides or where you can fall short, which is as you get older, appetite goes down, got to make up for these things.
Have you guys ever tried creatine gummies? I have. And in fact, for a while there between you and I, they were a secret vice of mine. Damn, they tasted good. Problem was, like many creatine gummy brands, while they taste good, they contain very little, if any, creatine at all. A lot of brands that have been selling these creatine gummies over the years have been knowingly or unknowingly duping us. So I've been waiting for a brand to bring out creatine chews that are actually legit. And Momentous stepped up to the plate big time. The all new Momentous creatine chews deliver exactly 1 gram of CreaPure creatine monohydrate, which is the gold standard form, single sourced from Germany and NSF certified for sport, meaning that every single batch is independently tested for purity, for safety, and for label accuracy. There's no artificial sweeteners, no fillers, just science-backed, clinically proven performance in a portable, craveable format. And right now, Momentous is offering our listeners up to 35% off your first order with promo code THEPROOF. Go to livemomentous.com and use promo code THEPROOF for up to 35% off your first order. That's livemomentous.com, promo code THEPROOF. I want to get your reaction.
Okay. What do you got?
Did you bring a video for me to react to?
I've got something for you. Do I get to look at the screen or is this just the audio?
All right, you ready?
Oh, nice. Hey, I've got a video I can share too. I love you, mate. You and your new music, your love for music. I rate it, bro.
Post Malone and Angus Stone.
Sounds
Is that
like,
us, Instant, or
sounds like
what?
Simon Hill. Yeah, I know. That's familiar. Can I play them, the clip of you? Why not? Get you to
Bring
react
it
to your
up.
own clip. I do have it here. I got to say, mate, your love for music is very refreshing because I've obviously been obsessed with music since I was a kid. And people might not know this, but before entering the exercise physiology world, I was like, I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. Like that was
This guy
my dream.
was selling out. Not quite
50
Madison
people
Square
venues.
Garden, but it's close.
I think like I probably played some shows in front of maybe a few hundred people, but like that
He's
was
very
my
humble.
dream.
He has a genuinely incredible voice.
But having you fall in love with the guitar and us being able to jam and stuff, mate, it's so wholesome to see. It's almost like I'm looking back at myself when I started, because I picked up a guitar when I was 12 years old, I think, or 11. And I can see you've still got that like,
Well, I picked up the guitar when I was 14.
yeah.
Did I tell you this?
No.
And I got guitar lessons.
You may have told me this once, actually.
And my teacher was really strict.
Yeah.
And it was these like really boring drills. And we never just kind of jammed or learned songs.
Yeah.
And I hated it.
Yes.
I quit.
I had the same experience, mate, but with piano, same experience.
I quit and I didn't pick it up until I was like 37.
I had the same experience. I was playing the piano. I was learning these songs I fucking had, like Bar Bar Black Sheep and Twinkle Twinkle. And I wanted to play like proper songs. And there was a day at my school where all the people who were in this piano, lesson thing would come and do their like concert to the parents. And it was a full auditorium and they called my name and Drew's going to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I said, no, I'm not. No chance. And I didn't get up and they called me again and my parents said, like, go. I'm like, no, I'm not playing that song. I said, get the next guy on. So I sat there, the next person went. And then when the show ended, I went up there on my own. Everyone's walking out. And I played the song that I wanted to play.
Oh, wow.
So I've always been that kind of guy. Like I was not going to be told what to do in that music, but we had a great jam yesterday. You're definitely improving. Can I play this clip?
You can play it. I
Okay.
mean, we were channeling Post Malone.
Look at that guy.
That was a little late.
Left?
Oh gosh.
You fell on the last hurdle.
no.
Oh man,
No,
that's
that
great,
was
though.
fun though. We
Um,
were playing for a couple of hours.
No, that's awesome. And then
Wait, have you got something for me to reflect on?
I do. I've got a post, but I just wanted to,
React
before
to?
I've got something for you to react to, but before we do that, just tell people about the birthday present that I got you that you didn't get.
So,
Mate, I cannot get over this.
well, a mystery kind of set of guitar books turned up to my house, and it was like different ways to play a chord, essentially. So you can go to the C chord and find another 5 or 6 variations, which just makes it interesting, right? When you're playing songs to get a little bit of a different flavor. And they turned up, and I remember saying to Tawny, because we'd been away and came back, I was like, I don't remember ordering these things. And we just, her and me, we kind of just convinced myself that I must have ordered these.
For yourself.
Yeah. Because when I find a new passion, I go right.
Yeah.
I go super deep on
Yeah,
it.
no, you brought your paddle to the
My
podcast.
paddle's sitting here now. I'm just trying to get grip time.
Just strap it on. You can hold it. You can just hold it there.
Yeah, continental
But
grip.
the thing is, mate, how do you think I got the address? I asked Tawny. So she should have straight away gone, oh, it's just Drew sent it for sure. Because it was a surprise birthday gift. But anyway, like 6 months go by. I'm trying to like find, I'm messaging UPS. I'm trying to find this thing.
But you never told me what you sent.
Yeah, I know. But I thought it was obvious enough. You're a very smart guy. Tawny's pretty smart too. Like you could have figured it out. But anyway, you've got the books. I'm glad to see you playing guitar and improving.
I'll put a little video up
Okay.
with the book.
Do you want to react to something? I hope you haven't seen this because I really want you to react to this for the very first time. Because this is a post that I saw a few months ago. And I'll just paint the picture a little bit. But I have been in a part of my life the last, say, 6-12 months where I feel like I'm entering a new phase, right? Where I look at the world and I think it looks so divisive, and I've been just a bit pessimistic about what the world looks like and what the future looks like. It looks like a dark, sort of grim place in many ways. And in other ways, in my own little bubble, it's beautiful. But I've been thinking about what I want my life to look like for the next however long I get to live, up to 100, hopefully. Where do I want to live? What kind of life do I want? What are my memories? What are the things I want to achieve? What's my legacy? Like, what am I doing here? Why am I arguing in the comments of a fucking Instagram post about protein and plant-based when I'm missing out on all this richness in other places? And I came across this post that it just hit a nerve so hard. So if you've seen this.
Is this going to piss me off?
Well, so this is the thing, right? When you were like bring something to react to, I was thinking, if I make it funny, we'll just laugh for the whole, it will be gone. Like we'll get the giggles, no chance. So it's not funny. And then I was
By the way, yeah. I feel like this is a stitch up because you asked me to bring something to react to. So you already had this planned.
But conveniently
you just tried to reposition that.
I didn't know what I was going to bring in.
Okay.
So when you said, what have you got for me to react to? I was thinking, should I make it funny? It'll ruin the whole podcast. We'll just laugh for the next hour.
No, I've been working on it.
Yeah, you felt it together. Nice, bro. Strong mental strength.
Nearly.
Yeah, that's what it is. You're mature, finally. You're just a big baby. But anyway.
We all are.
We all.
Including the people that run all of our countries.
It's true.
That's something that you begin to appreciate the older you get.
That we're all just big babies and we put our trust in these adults who are pretending to know what they're doing. I think about that sometimes about us, don't you? Anyway, back to this. Then I was like, should I bring something that's like kind of like triggering that's going to piss him off? I'm like, you know what? We see that all the time. So this is actually something wholesome, all right? And if you've seen it, I encourage you to watch it again with fresh eyes and ears and take it all in, mate.
Oh, God. Isn't that just like such a reality check?
You hold it.
I'm 80 years old and somehow I woke up in my 38-year-old body just for one day. Mummy, wake up, they shout. I blink. I sit up slowly. My babies, they're small again. I gasp. I cry. They climb into bed, giggling, wiggling. I used to rush through mornings, but not today. I catch my reflection in the bathroom mirror. No deep lines, no grey hair, my younger face. I used to think I looked old at 38. What a silly thought. I stare for a moment and think, you are so beautiful. I find my husband in the kitchen making coffee. He looks strong and young. I wrap my arms around him so tightly, he looks surprised. We pile into the car, kids arguing over seatbelts. Someone drops a snack, crumbs everywhere. I used to get so frustrated, but I'll miss this mess. I will miss this mess. Dinner is loud and unorganised. No one wants to sit still. There's shouting, giggling, and so much life. And before bed, I pick up the phone and I call my mum. I hear her voice. Mum! Mum! I haven't heard this voice in so many years. And I tell her I love her again and again and again. And I never want to hang up. At bedtime, I don't skip the pages in the story. Not tonight. I don't want this day to end. I got one more day. And this time I knew. This was joy. This was love. Those little hands, those loud, messy dinners. Our strong, young bodies with no aches or pains. Our parents who were still alive. It all mattered. So much more than we ever realised. Doesn't that just put you right back to where we have to be grateful? We're just surviving, we're not thriving. But it's just a moment where we have to think, whenever we are overwhelmed and we're in the trenches, just think of that 80-year-old and go back to that time. Because you're going to miss this. We will.
Oof.
It's powerful stuff, eh?
Life's long, but at the same time, it goes too quick.
And what we put our focus and attention on is just so misdirected.
And it's so easy to just in the day-to-day be so harsh on ourselves and critical.
Right.
And to not be able to cultivate that gratitude.
I know. And like, even how unimportant does 1.2 grams of protein now sound after you?
Honestly,
Honestly.
I think we can delete the first hour and 40 minutes of this
start
podcast.
now, right? But do you know what I mean?
Tofu and seitan.
I know. I never want to hear tofu again. No, but it's just such an important reminder.
Howdy, friends. Quick little pause here. If you are enjoying this conversation with my good friend Drew Harrisberg and you want to keep receiving content that is fact-checked and free of sensationalism, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. It's the best way to ensure you don't miss our next episode. Okay, back to my conversation with Drew Harrisberg.
If you don't mind, can I ask you a question? We did this at our retreat, you and I in Bali years ago, but I did it recently in Byron again. I would like to challenge you to answer this question. If you only had 24 hours left to live, tomorrow's your last day. Starts when you wake up, you've got 24 hours. How do you spend your last day? What does it look like?
Immediately, I think about surrounding myself with friends and family, but I'd be highly selective. Not trying to focus on quantity, really, the quality. So wouldn't really be surrounding myself with that many people. I'd be doing the things that I love to do that bring laughter and joy. And I think I would be sharing memories and talking about all of the things that we've either done together or the things that I've done through my life that have brought me joy, the lessons that I've learned that I could share with my nephews. It would all come back to, it all comes back to memories. It's the memory dividends. It wouldn't be about being in any particular place. It's really who I was with.
Wow.
You know, my funny side of me wants to say playing paddle, but honestly, I'm not sure I'd have time.
Yeah. It just comes down to the most simple, basic thing, which is human connection, right? Like, and then
I would want Tawny to know anything that I'd left unsaid. You know, my mom and my dad, like, I'd be digging deep. Is there anything that I haven't said to my mom and my dad that they should know?
The question is, if that's how you would live your last day, why haven't you done that today or yesterday, or you have an opportunity to do it tomorrow? We need to say these things. We need to, you're not spending, how much screen time are you having on your last day on earth? I bet you it's absolutely 0 minutes.
I spend more time probably watching paddle highlights on Instagram than speaking to my parents.
Yeah, I'm laughing, but that's kind of sad. So,
if you were to add up,
yeah,
and that goes for a lot of us, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
How many minutes a day are spent scrolling on social media versus genuine connection with the people that you would invite on that last day to be with you?
The answer's the same for all of us, right?
I think it's a few things. It's one, we don't want to accept that day's coming, even though it's an inevitability. Kind of delusional almost. We're going to get out of this one alive.
Yeah.
Somehow this is going to end differently for me.
Right. And we think it's so
we think
far
we have so
away.
much time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we underestimate that.
Think about the things that you are doing day to day now that you wouldn't do on your last day. As a thought experiment, if the overwhelming majority of your day is spent doing things that you would never even consider doing on your last day, they're so unimportant, there's such time sucks, there's such a waste of your energy, your time, your love to give. How do we re-engineer our days? Like, why are we doing that?
It's the opportunity cost. So if you're spending all your time doing that stuff that you wouldn't do on your last day, you're not doing the things that you would do on your last day. And we know, I've spoken about this on this show, psychologists like Tom Gilovich have literally looked, like that was she an 83-year-old woman or something?
Yeah.
Right? 83 or 89,
yeah.
something like that. They've studied what drives the most regret. Because a lot of what she was verbally communicating sounded to me like regret, right? Looking through life in the rearview mirror and wanting to have taken action where she didn't.
Or just
or
simply
wanting to have a different perspective.
correct.
It was like,
Be present. Simply
Being
being present in the
but
moments.
that is an action.
It is an action, yeah.
And when you do speak with people who are in their last few years of life and you ask them questions to find out what's driving regret, it's not really the things they took action on in their life. It's the things they didn't take action on. It's inaction. And it's inaction towards your ideal self is what they describe. But not the ought self, which is like what society thinks you should be. Have a job promotion, earn more money, get the big house. That's the ought self. I ought to be like that. But the ideal self is based on your values, right? Who is that person and what are the actions you'd have to take consistently to be that person? If we are not taking those actions through our life, those are the things on our deathbed that we're going to be thinking about.
And they're mostly, not always, but they're mostly very little things, like very accessible, small things every day, like a connection with a kid or your parents or your partner or a dog or taking in a view or jumping to the ocean, learning an instrument. I actually remember years ago you said one of your regrets would be if you didn't learn guitar.
I mean, it was part of this research was what made me look at my life and think about the things that I wasn't doing.
Right.
But there's always more.
Yeah. There's always more, but there's also a base level of importance where in this world of optimization, you just want to go, it's okay to not optimize everything all the time. Like it's so okay. In fact, that pursuit it's like 2 steps back, 1 step forward sometimes. You're always just trying to catch up. Well, if you can just drop that optimization and just focus on the little things, like I think that poem or letter or whatever that was just, everyone feels that straight away when you hear that because we can all do that right now, but we're not. I can't remember if I spoke to you about this on the pod in previous episodes, but I had a wake-up call like this when my grandma passed away. And did I tell you this story? I may have told you offline, and sorry if I repeat it online, but I'll just tell it now because it's relevant. But my grandma passed away, and before she passed away, she was in a hospital bed surrounded by a room full of people, 20, 30 people, generations, 3-4 generations, great-grandkids, grandkids, her kids, cousins. It was just a room packed for this one individual who was taking her last breath. And I remember thinking, I don't have kids. And at the time, I didn't even know if I would ever want to have kids, but I just remember thinking, if one day I get to that age of 95 and I'm lying in a bed, this room is going to be empty. Unless my partner, Carly, can outlive me. If she passes first, or one of us may be alone in this room. And I just remember that it hit me so hard thinking how, if you don't, and I don't want to get into it about people should or shouldn't have families, but like getting to that last breath in an empty room, being alone, to me was just kind of a bit of a scary thought. And I was thinking like, who am I leaving behind? What is my legacy? Have I done enough? Should I do more? What am I going to regret? And what are the inactions that I'm going to regret? Not the actions, but the inactions, as you said before. And when I heard that, it took me back to that room. Mate, the first time I saw that, I was like crying watching it. And even just then, like it just hits you every time.
A lot of what was in her speech was really about the way in which she was affecting others around her as well. So I think that's what we really care about. A big part of it. When you're sitting there on the deathbed, it's when you're thinking about your kids or your siblings or the conversations you have or haven't had. It's really like, how have you affected these people in your life?
And how you in a moment of impatience, the little thing that annoyed you, if you had it over again, you would take it in and be thankful for it. It would be a privilege, an absolute privilege. Like,
because there's another side of this, which is like an ego-driven side of like, am I worthy enough of having 30 people around me?
You're right.
That's where I was just trying to think about like, what's really the driving the regret? Like, because you're fearing being alone. Is that because of what it says about you?
No.
Or is it because of if you are alone, that's meant that you haven't done
left something
ABC.
behind. That's the way I see it. So it's not about, I'm not scared, like I'm going to die. Who cares? I'm going to be alone or not. It's sorry, it's a good point. I didn't articulate it that well. It was what you're leaving behind, right? So my grandmother left behind a huge family who are all having their own offspring. And you've got this line that's just going to continue on, but it ends at you. And I think that for me was the fear of like, what am I doing? Who am I leaving behind? And what are they going to do for the world? And if it just ends here, then what is but you're right. There is an ego.
There's an immortality-ness to what you're saying. To your grandma's passed on, but she's still here because her effect, back to like how you've affected someone. That's where I was thinking about where you were trying to go with that or where you were going, like what was under it. I think it's the more people you're affecting in a positive way, like through your family and social communities, the more lasting impact that you have, which in a world that needs more positivity is a really good thing. And that seems to be something that would drive peace just before you take your last breath.
I mean, mate, you just nailed it. My grandma, who passed away with a body that was broken, shall we say, an organ failure, but a sharp mind, she like laughed in her last moments and smiled, like just knowing who was there, what she'd done. Like she couldn't even see who was in the room, but she knew that her kids and grandkids and great grandkids were there. She left with a smile. It's unbelievable, and like no fear of going. Just wow, this went way deeper than I thought from that clip, mate.
Well, in order to make this practical, how do you cultivate her level of gratitude and presence and commitment and honor that? Like, what's the takeaways here? Because we can intellectualize it, but the cows come home. But I'm still probably going to get a message from my mum tonight and not call her tonight. And I mean, to your point, it's not about being perfect, but what is the strategy that will help us all realize that even though it feels like we have a lot of time on our side, we don't actually?
I wish I had the answer. I truly am searching myself. I think it's harder now than ever for our generation, and I just think we're too fucking distracted. We're nowhere near as present as, say, our great grandparents.
The word distraction, by definition, pulling you away from something that's more meaningful.
Right. Because, like, let's be honest, having a phone in your pocket where you can scroll and be connected with every other person on earth without being connected to the person you're sitting across, it's not a tool that's really helped quality relationships, right?
Right. But in some ways, I look at some people like Tawny. She's very good at using her phone to connect, to keep up with her friends, like a wide circle of people, phone calls and connect with them, and they're in different states.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, I have a really bad relationship with my phone in that I will fall into the doom scrolling, like most of us, but also at times I just look at my phone and it kind of repulses me. And the last thing I wanted to be doing is making lots of long phone calls.
We're very similar. That's why we
and
can
then I go away and
weeks without talking.
sit down and play the guitar.
Right.
And it leads to, I guess, a disconnection with a lot of people because I'm not, spending the 30 minutes on the phone call with this friend and with that friend. And I'm waiting until the, infrequent time is the overlap in an in-person setting.
That's a great point. I'm so similar to you. I'm so similar. And I think the way Tawny does it is she uses the tool for the job it was probably best designed for. Like she's hammering a nail with a hammer. We're trying to like unscrew a freaking screw with it. Like it's just not going to happen. So I think like, I'm not saying that a phone completely disconnects you from people. It can if you use the tool how it's designed or use it properly. I'm like you, mate. I'll just go from too much screen time to zero. I'm not responding to anyone. And then I don't speak to my friends for long enough and I don't check in on them. And then all of a sudden relationships start to fade. I think it takes work. We need to treat this like we do our bodies in the gym. Like you got to show up every day and put in the reps. Like what's the best way to do it? Like I used to try to, again, like you fall back into your ways, but on my drive home from golf, let's say, I've got a 40-minute drive in the car, call someone that you care about and just talk to them. I said this at the retreat, I set a goal for myself, call my sister after golf. How many times have I done it? Maybe twice.
This goes back to something we were talking about the other day, where part of me often thinks about just wanting a simpler life with less things and less distraction, right? And then I think maybe we're distracting ourselves on purpose, though.
From doing the hard things. That
maybe it's subconscious. Because you would think that you could just be intentional, like you were talking about, and then this would just be really easy. Not sure it works that way.
It's not that. It's definitely not that easy. It's definitely it's the knowledge action gap. Like, you know something's good for you, right? And I'm going to throw my mum under the bus. I've done it before. I'll do it again. She knows exercise is good for her. She's a very smart woman. She's a doctor. I'm her son. I'm in her ear all the time. She knows it's good, but she has a hard time acting in a way that aligns with that knowledge or wisdom of exercise is good for my muscles and bones and health and longevity and mental health, physical health, but can't consistently show up to do the hard thing. But she's so good at doing so many other hard things in life, right? And I'm the opposite, right? So I'm so good at showing up for the workout, the ice bath, the self-inflicted pain and struggle. But then the thing that is hard for me, the equivalent of the workout for my mom, is calling my parents and telling them I love them, or calling my sister and saying I love you. Can't do it. I'm just not. It's so hard. But yeah, I just don't know what the answer is, man. You're gonna have to get an expert on to unpack this one.
Yeah, we're gonna have to circle back, but I'm just thinking out loud here. Is it a values question? Because I don't necessarily think it is. I think you value your relationship with your sister and with your parents. Some people might press you and say you value your health more than, or whatever it is that you're doing instead of. Like, do you value scrolling Instagram more than relationship with your parents?
I mean, obviously not. And I imagine that everyone's answer would be, of course not.
Yet, there's still often a priority towards the scrolling, and we feel disconnected from people in our life.
Right. There's a natural resistance that seems to always be there that is hard to overcome. But I think your question before was like, what is a strategy? Like, what's a practical way around that? You need to speak to like a behavioral psychologist or something, because I just don't know, mate. I really cannot answer it. And I have all these ways to achieve the goal of, pick up the phone and call your sister or connect with this person. And then the resistance is just slightly bigger than my motivation and drive to do that thing. And then a month goes by, 2 months go, another year, 2026, 2027. And before you know it, it's just the years are ticking on.
Right. Until something major happens. And there's an event that creates a lot of fear.
Right. Because fear is a good acute short-term motivator. But when the fear subsides, you just go back to what your baseline is.
And I've heard you say joy is a better motivator.
Yeah, it's just a better long-term motivator.
Long-term.
Yeah.
So it would follow that through intentionally catching up with your sister, doing the things with your parents, that you're driving more. You have to drive more joy for that to become a habit, to feel a reward from it. And I think a lot of people feel it as a chore. And unfortunately, it feels like hard work. Now, I agree. I need a psychologist to understand what's going on there. But where my mind's going is that kind of grit your teeth and you just do it because, like, you think, this is what you're told leads to a meaningful life. But if you're not getting that hit of dopamine or joy or reward, doesn't shift from something that requires a whole lot of intentionality and thought to something that's just happening subconsciously.
Yeah, it's a great point, because if I think about the way I show up to the gym every day, it's not hard. I know how much joy I'm going to feel the other side of it. There's not much resistance. I don't require a lot of motivation. Like I feel like it's quite easy.
By the way, we sound like the shittest sons right now in the world.
No, this is the thing, right? And that's actually, I'm glad you said that. Thankfully, my parents and myself Like my parents know that I'm a good son who loves them and cares about them, even though I don't tell them all the time. Right? So I think you can show that in other ways. It doesn't have to be telling them all the time. Like I am acting in a way that they know, right? I just feel like, when I listen to that poem and I think back one day, I probably haven't said it enough,
I would echo that. I would say particularly with my mum, the immediate thing I think about is she's more available for me than I'm available for her.
Yeah. Most mums are though, right?
Which maybe that's just how it is.
That's a very maternal.
But that often leaves me feeling a bit of guilt.
Yeah. Me too. Hey, we got to keep each other accountable here.
I mean, we did say earlier we're big babies, and I mean, this is just a testament to the fact that everyone's got things to work on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
So that went down a track I didn't think we were going.
Me too. Glad we did though.
Do you want to do trends for 2026?
Yes. Can you kick us off?
I think from a sporting perspective.
Okay. To start with a P?
Starts with a P and ends with an L.
Okay.
I think in countries like the US and Australia, we will see people probably think this is silly. Like why these guys talking about paddle? What is this sport? I was first introduced to it in Bali. It's a combination, I guess, a mix of squash and tennis. Really fun game. Kind of like half the size of a normal tennis court. You play in doubles. And it's been big in Europe for a long time. There's like 30 or 40 million players worldwide. But in the United States, pickleball's like the biggest kind of racket sport outside of tennis. And in Australia, neither pickleball nor paddle have been that popular. But now there's like an explosion of paddle courts. So much so that there is a new paddle court going up every 2.5 hours or 1.5 hours. We'll fact check that. This is from Playtomic.
Really?
Every 1.5 to 2.5 hours globally right now, there's a new paddle court being built. Pretty impressive.
Says something.
But I think 2026, we're going to see a lot more paddle centers being set up with, numerous numbers of courts and little gyms and recovery, and similar kind of to how we saw run clubs take off. I think you're going to see these paddle clubs take off because it is a sport that, incredible workout, right? You've seen you whooped at it.
Mine's not as good as yours in terms of heart rates, but yes.
But wow. Like for
you need a good quality
for
game.
Zone 2, Zone 3.
Oh yeah. It's the most fun you're going to have doing Zone 2 in your life.
90 minutes to Zone 2, Zone 3.
Yeah.
Maybe in a really big game, you might get some Zone 4. And, you play that 2 or 3 times a week. That adds up.
And it's so much fun.
So much fun.
You don't even know you're doing it. To me, it's like the perfect unstructured exercise that's just, it's really just masked as it's play. Yeah. But you're getting a tremendous cardiovascular workout.
And also you're getting mobility.
Social connection, power, up and down, changing direction.
Social connection's a big piece. It's a great community.
Yeah.
And now with these apps, you can just kind of plug in and find competitive games based on people that are at your level, jump in. So I think that'll be a huge trend.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's not only going to be it's a sport that women are taking up as well. So everyone, a lot of fun. And what I was going to say was that unlike tennis, if you're a beginner in tennis, you jump on the court with someone who's like even just intermediate to advanced, you're not going to be hitting many balls back. The thing with paddle is maybe when you are just first jumping on the court, you need a few lessons and like get a feel for particularly playing off the wall if you haven't played squash. But after you have done a little bit of that and maybe played 4 or 5 games, you can play with a lot of people. You can play with people that are better than you or even a little bit not as good as you, and you can still have good rallies. Different to tennis, and that's what I think is resulting in rapid growth. Same as pickleball. But pickleball, we're seeing a slightly different demographic, I think.
Right, slightly older.
A lot of 25 to say 50-year-olds in paddle. That's not to say everyone's in that age bracket, but that's probably where the hotspot is. And then I think pickleball skews a little bit more older, probably because it's a little bit slower.
Yeah, I think the skill requirements are a little lower, and the physical functional requirements are a little
But
lower.
pickleball is also
Still
an amazing
fun.
sport to keep people active
Oh yeah,
in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and you get a good workout as well.
yeah,
It's a little less intense on the joints.
yeah. I can see paddle absolutely exploding. I mean, I feel like it is already quite big. It's got to be the
It's
fastest
growing.
growing sport in the world at the moment.
Growing.
It's got to be up there.
And I would say the other trend, and this is growing. We've done retreats together. You've done retreats by yourself. I think retreats are just going to explode next year. There's going to be a lot of longevity style retreats, and some of them will be like collabs with specific hotels and resorts around the world that offer VO2 max testing and maybe even DEXA scans and the full blood test. It'll be kind of in depth, do a look under the hood style retreat, and probably paddle retreats. So
Sign
combining
me
the
up.
two,
Take
combining
my
the
money.
two, and if you want to, we should probably
Let's do one.
run one of those.
Let's do it.
We find somewhere.
Let us know in the comments if you'd come to our paddle
If you
retreat.
want to come and have friendly paddle, where we could get some paddle coaches in as well, learn the techniques, but really just have fun and laugh, and then
I love that.
do some local things in whatever the area are, whether it's hiking or just going out for dinner and just laughing and
Daily workouts, yoga, eating good food. It's endless. Sign me up.
paddle retreat.
I love it. But also in this world of, as we were saying, like disconnection, like, I mean, what a way. Spend a few days together with people who are like-minded. And yeah, there we go. There's a gift. I like that. I think those predictions are going to be bang on. I'm just going to check my blood glucose while I talk about this. And you may have noticed that I'm going back to the old.
Yeah, what's behind that?
It was an accident. It's the first day that I've done it in truly like a few years. My CGM came out today when I was training, and I forgot to put one back in, and I left the house, and it really feels like I'm flying blind, like doing this, because you just get a snapshot every couple of hours. Like I've done it twice since we started recording. And I'm in a good spot, but I just, in the last 2 hours, my brain, I'm thinking, am I going low? Am I high? Should I eat a banana? Like
It's amazing the amount of mental kind of energy calculations that you're running on a daily basis.
You don't even understand. Like if you don't live with diabetes, you have no idea. And I didn't even understand the burden that was being placed on me, even over I've had it for 15 years. The last 12 months, it sort of hit me. I'm like, holy shit, this is exhausting. And I think it's because I'm dealing with more stress than ever. After Dennis passed away, the last 6 months, I'd say, has been weird for me. Like I've felt like a lack of purpose. My days were centered around Dennis and taking him to the beach and the park and looking after him. And, Carly and I and Dennis, we were like a wolf pack, and then we lost a member of the pack, and our relationship's amazing. I feel like we're closer than ever, but it's
like this piece of the puzzle was missing.
Yes. And we're trying to, we're thinking, the conundrum is, are we trying to replace that piece of the puzzle, or do we accept where we are and enjoy this moment and create a new one? So it's been a weird 6 months, but I think the stress my diabetes management has been the worst it's been in 15 years. And I've got great tech. I've got a CGM. I've got a smart insulin pen that when I give an insulin dose, it's Bluetooth to my phone. It's this Medtronic InPen. I can see how much insulin's on board. When was my last dose? It can help me calculate doses for meals. Like I'm well looked after with tech, and it's still been very hard to keep my levels in range to the degree that I would like. But the last day doing this, I feel like I've got like it's so antiquated. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like I need my CGM back, and I've been so dependent on this tech that I'm kind of like even more anxious now.
Yesterday, I think I saw you had your CGM on your leg.
Yeah.
You changed.
Well, yeah, I've changed it to my leg. This is an interesting conversation, actually. I didn't plan on speaking about this, but I've been thinking about this a lot. Every day, I used to wear it on my arm, right? Every day that I would leave the house, I would have someone come up to me, see the CGM, and they would go, do you have type 1 diabetes? My son has it, or I have it, or how long have you had it? And we just straight away, like brothers or sisters, like hug it out, the connection, right? I moved it to my leg. I've not spoken to someone on the street about diabetes ever since I moved it. So I've lost so many potential points of contact with people just purely because I don't have this sort of label or badge showing that I'm someone living with type 1 diabetes, which has been so interesting.
You're going to move it back?
I'm moving it back. And I really enjoyed it on my leg because it's out of the way. It doesn't come off in my workouts how my arm used to. But I'm almost thinking now I might even wear two. Just keep an old one on the arm that doesn't even work just so I can have that interaction. Like I really have missed that. But I also get people coming up to me almost every day. This kid, mate, this grinds me.
I know what you're going to say.
I'll get people come up to me and say, "Oh, I see you wear a CGM. Is it good?" And I'm like, "By is it good, do you mean, does it keep me alive?" Yeah, it's good. It's like unbelievable. It's a life-saving tool. And then they're like, "Do you recommend it?" I'm like, "Do you have diabetes?" And they're usually like, no, just, you don't want to know how this food affects it. I'm like, mate, like, I guess, yes, if you really want to learn about some foods and how it impacts you, I guess it's
not their fault, mate.
Quote unquote good.
Unfortunately, it's not their fault.
I know.
I mean,
but it's just, this is the world we live in.
This is the world we live in. And
this is the optimizer world. And this is why I'm so torn, having these conversations with people. I will never be rude. I totally understand where they're coming from. They want to just improve their health. It's good. It's awesome. I take my hat off, but it's the not understanding that this thing is keeping me alive in my sleep. Like that is the thing I think that people don't understand. Diabetes is a full-time job.
I mean, you want people to understand your lived experience. And when someone sees the CGM and thinks you're optimizing, they're actually not seeing you.
I think that's part of it. I also...
Well, what else is it?
Well, I'm never offended by it. Let me just say that.
I know, but you're pointing out that you want them to kind of really understand why you're wearing it.
No,
No,
not for me. I want them to know that they are fine and healthy and that you don't need to be optimizing every piece of data. This is a life-saving tool that keeps me alive. I want them to go, "Oh, you're healthy without disease and you're at the beach right now and you just ate a healthy meal."
I see what you're saying. You don't want them to look at you and you're adding to this motivation to over-optimize.
Correct.
Because you're wearing it for another reason.
Right. I'm not offended. I can answer their question. I'll tell them exactly what I just told you. No problem. It's the fact that it's a broader picture of the world that people are just trying to optimize everything all the time. And I just want people to just be present. You're doing great, mate. Enjoy your life. Call your mom. Tell your mom you love her. You don't need to buy a CGM. You'll be right. But then, and then the other thing is, like, I do respect people who will do whatever it takes to improve their health. So, part of me is like, good on you, buddy. And I'll give them a bit of a fist bump, but we part ways. But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent.
The over-optimization conversation is important, though. Because I think it's gone so far to that extreme that it's almost as if people are kind of deriving their joy from the over-optimization, right? And it's robbing them of investing time into all these other areas. It's coming at a cost.
Right. Yeah, it's like they're putting in all this work, but the return on investment is just minuscule. And actually, that kind of ties into what I think a trend is. I could be so wrong with this. This is a bold prediction. I think we're going to see a pendulum swing to like a wave of people. It might be a small minority of anti-optimizers, like just back to basics, keep life simple. And it comes back to the sort of those retreat things where it's just about connection, just do your best, have fun, enjoy your life, but less about trying to optimize every single biomarker and metric. I think there has to be a pushback at some point where people are just fed up with it. Maybe it's not next year. Maybe it's like 10 years time, or maybe I'm so far off that. But I do think that I don't think we're not alone.
I agree with you, but I don't think it's going to go from the, crazy biohacking list of 150 things to just eat, move, sleep. It's going to be a distillation of the 150 plus things that people are optimizing down to like 10 or 12 important things.
Right. Like a short list of, the biggest levers. Yeah, that is probably right.
And I say that largely because I think these longevity clinics are just picking up steam. I don't think they're going away anywhere. And I think more of the public are going to have access to VO2 max testing and to DEXA scans, measuring ApoB, hopefully testing their blood pressure at home. Like some of these things are important to keep an eye on.
I agree with you, but I think the difference is those are very acute tests. You don't do those every day. I'm talking about the daily micromanaging of blood glucose that you don't really need to do if you don't have diabetes, right? There's some biomarkers that I agree. Every now and then, test your VO2. You've got to do the blood pressure test, do an HbA1c, get a blood test every few months, whatever. Those are the big rocks for me. It's those micromanaging every bit of data, waking up, looking at your sleep, how many minutes. I slept an extra minute in REM last night. Oh, I fell behind in recovery 1%. We just need to take our foot off the gas sometimes.
Yeah, and having the perfect morning routine. 7 different things that you do in order every morning.
Right.
And you see, as you do that, as you do more of the over-optimization, the ironic thing is you actually become less resilient and less adaptable. So when you get thrown off course and you can't do your morning routine, you're way less resilient than the person who has a less complicated morning routine.
I agree. I've had that myself. There are days sometimes where I'll wake up feeling fresh and I'll check my Whoop score and it's in the red and I go, fuck, thought I slept so well. Why is my HRV tanked? But if I just went with the subjective, I'm like, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's swim. Let's go to the beach. Let's get that workout, whatever. It's the relationship you have with your data is very, very important. Right? And I think that there's a fine dance between, subjective and objective data.
You said antiquated before, and that made me think of RFK Jr. He's come out.
He's got guidelines coming out.
He's come out and said the dietary guidelines are antiquated.
I can't wait to see these guidelines. When do they come out?
I think they come out in January.
Oh my. What's your prediction?
Firstly, I have an episode, 2 episodes with Kevin Hall. He has a very interesting story involving the NIH and RFK Jr.
He resigned because of this, right?
And one of those conversations is with Kevin Hall and Christopher Gardner. And Christopher Gardner was on the Dietary Guidelines Committee that's informed the Republicans and Maha about what the dietary guidelines should look like. But it appears as though RFK Jr. is at least when it comes to saturated fats, not taking on the advice from that committee. And is going to be promoting some type of dietary guidelines that's encouraging the consumption of saturated fat-rich foods, which of course has created a lot of pushback already. But just to put this on people's radar, you'll see these published in January, you'll see tons of headlines, and you'll see enormous pushback from the academic community as to why this is silly. The problem is it's probably going to happen. And it probably will. It's not that the dietary guidelines themselves are that influential.
Because no one follows them anyway.
Well, when I say that, most of the people in the United States are not adhering to the dietary guidelines.
Right.
Because of socioeconomic reasons.
Right.
The food environment, the amount of money they're earning, the ways that big food companies are lobbying the government, the ways that big food companies are donating money to the parties, and in return, not having their food legislated in a way that lowers profits, right? That's really what's controlling most people's diets.
Yes.
Jessica Nurick outlined that in my episode with her. But that said, I do think the dietary guidelines, particularly in this instance, I think they're gonna have an effect. And I think they're going to have an effect because they're going to encourage the consumption of animal foods. And there's a large contingency of people online on social media who are going to jump on that and use that as a bit of see, this is what happens when you get a government that has the truth with a capital T. And so I think it will influence a lot of people in wellness sphere, not necessarily broad population who are outside of this bubble.
And the wellness sphere has a big voice.
Right?
Right? A lot of people with millions and millions of followers and big podcasts like Rogan and all his disciples. And if the guidelines tell people what they want to hear and they're already doing it, they're just going to double down on that, right?
The problem that I see with RFK Jr. and just that group in general is 2 things can be true at once. So their argument is often that 1980 guidelines came out and said, eat low fat. Look what happened. That at a high level, again, coming back to where we started this conversation, if you just have a bias toward loving animal foods, you could just accept that at face value, right? But if you're actually interested in being objective here, like let's double click on that. In 1980, the guidelines came out and said eat low fat. People got sicker, more type 2 diabetes. Actually, less cardiovascular disease. People got heavier though. Well, what happened? Well, the guidelines told people to eat a certain way, but very few people actually ate that way. So we saw a significant increase in ultra-processed food consumption, in refined carbohydrate consumption. And we didn't really see much of a reduction in saturated fat. So it's difficult to when you see the data and actually how people made changes to their diet, it's difficult to say, hey, we've already done this lower saturated fat, increased polyunsaturated fats, and it didn't work. It's difficult to take that position. We didn't do that. Told people to eat less fat and they ate more ultra-processed foods and they gained a lot of weight and they put themselves at risk of metabolic diseases like type 2 diabetes and fatty liver disease. Reviewing the overall data, like I was beginning here, two things can be true. Excessive saturated fats can be problematic for cardiovascular disease, and refined sugars and carbohydrates in hyperpalatable foods can be a problem. And you want to know a dietary pattern that really de-emphasizes saturated fats and ultra-processed foods, the Mediterranean diet. You only have to look over to a bunch of populations in that part of the world to see that diet produces really good health outcomes. So the erring on the side of the caution kind of recommendations, and this would probably be what was in the scientific committee's recommendations, would be to recommend a diet that's consistent with the healthy Mediterranean style diet for the population of the United States.
Just so I understand how this works, because I'm not sure like the policy behind these guidelines and how it actually comes to being this black and white, guide that's delivered to the public health. The scientific committee of experts reviews the broad body of evidence and presents a case as to why the guidelines should be X, Y, Z. RFK and his team can decide what to do despite the science pointing in one direction. Is that right?
That's exactly right, what happens. And he's also making this very political in that he's saying that the current dietary guidelines have failed and current dietary guidelines were Biden's work. The current dietary guidelines actually came through during Trump's first presidency. So that was completely misinformed. And I don't lean to Republican or to Democrat. I just care about the science here. And so yeah, the way it should work is you form a committee of experts, right, of nutrition scientists who understand how to evaluate the literature, and you get a committee so that it's not just one person's point of view. They're going to get together, weigh up all of the evidence, debate the evidence. What scientists do: debate the evidence, talk about the uncertainty, understand based on all of the different types of study designs that we have, what should we be recommending to the general population to target the types of conditions that people are experiencing to lower the risk of the things that are driving low quality of life, early mortality, premature death, and increased healthcare costs. Unfortunately, your point, what the committee comes up with is not what's published.
Yeah. What's the point of that process? I just do not what a waste of time for everyone. If at the end of the day, the big boss can just go, cool story, we're going to do this.
Well, I had dinner with Dr. Christopher Gardner the other night, and I don't think you'll mind me saying this, but I think your frustration is representative of that entire
I can only imagine their frustration.
Committee.
Right. I feel like they just wasted not just the time in trying to convince RFK what the guidelines should be, but the years of research. Like some of these people have, dedicated decades, their whole life to research, and then it just gets thrown out. Beef tallows back, baby.
To see that come unstuck.
Oh.
Like someone like Dr. Walter Willett.
Right. Even Kevin Hall.
He's 80-something years old now.
Right.
He's across all of this data probably more than anyone else.
Right. And it's just out the window, gone. So beef tallow is going to come back. The guidelines are going to be very high in saturated fat, almost no limit, I imagine.
Probably it's going to be cooking with butter, coconut oil, beef tallow.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he has a strong position against seed oils. He's already celebrated one of the fast food chains swapping from tallow to seed oils.
That's the irony.
Sorry, seed oils to tallow.
But that's the irony. He does celebrate McDonald's, Fruit Loops that are a different color. Like his overall message does not seem one of diet quality.
That's Jessica Nurick's thesis, is that those things that he's celebrating and Maha celebrate generally are a distraction. If you want to improve quality of the diet in America, back to what I said at the beginning, first you have to stop the donations from the food companies to the different parties. Because if they're receiving these millions and millions and millions of dollars, you would have to be a very brave government to legislate against them. They just helped you win your campaign.
Yeah, right.
They're going to support your next campaign.
Right. God, it's a mess. It's such a mess. What do you think can happen? Are the guidelines 4 years? No. How many years do they come out? How often do you redo the guidelines?
Yeah, 2020 was the last ones.
Okay. So no, it's more than 4 years. What damage can be done in, say, 6 years, 6 to 8 years? If people actually double down and start doing this and, you've confirmed all the biases they already have.
I think we're in an interesting time because at the same time, GLP-1 agonists are going up, right? So I expect weight in America to come down. But I mentioned earlier, cardiovascular disease mortality since the 1950s has come down. That's going to be multifactorial. Less smoking, better medications to reduce cholesterol, slightly less saturated fat in the diet, better medical care, better surgeries. But if the average person is influenced by the dietary guidelines, starts having more butter and more fatty cuts of red meat, more full fat dairy, we know what's going to happen to their ApoB. This is in a population of people that are not metabolically healthy. Evidence suggests those people will be laying down atherosclerosis at an accelerated rate. So if carried out for long enough, we're going to be able to probably detect this in 12 months. But if there are significant changes to diet that results in those foods being consumed in a significantly increased amount, you would expect to see a knock-on effect on cardiovascular disease, stroke, and heart attacks. If it encourages high consumption of red meat, this is where dose becomes really important. Healthy dietary pattern, like a Mediterranean diet, can have some red meat in it. And it's not until you appreciate dose and look at studies where there's enough contrast between low and between high that you see increased risk of an outcome like colorectal cancer. Right? And typically that's when you're comparing above 100 grams red meat a day to below 30 or 40, where you start to see enough difference to detect an effect for that outcome. Who knows what you would see for risk of colorectal cancer? Or what I could say is that the data there suggests if eating enough red meat, the people could be at increased risk of colorectal cancer. And given what we're already seeing about heightened rates of colorectal cancer in people aged under 40, who are probably the people that are going to be most influenced by these guidelines online, I think that's worrying.
I think in the next 6 years, I don't know, is it long enough to actually see these things on the rise? And, the next set of guidelines that come out, there's no way they flip-flop back to, plant heavy. So
I think it'll take a decade or so, because once the guidelines come in, it's not like a study is just going to be set up straight away, and it's going to take time for people's diets to shift.
And the confounders that you said, Ozempic and GLP-1s.
Those in and of themselves are lowering body weight, which lowers risk of cancer.
Right. Very, very tricky. Oh boy, we're entering an interesting time, eh?
God, seatbelts.
Yeah, that was a good prediction, though. Let's see what happens. What do you think the guidelines will actually be, though? Can you imagine? Is it a pyramid? Is it a plate? Is there a focus on micronutrients, macronutrients, or is it just these are the foods we want to be eating every day?
I think it'll be whole food based.
Cereal.
Generally, I like the idea that it'll be interesting to see how they handle ultra processed foods, because it comes back to the donations and the alignment. I think this is going to be very telling. Are they going to come out like Brazil and be super firm on ultra processed foods? Or are there corporate interests at play? The language around ultra-processed foods will be super interesting. I suspect it'll be a plate. And on that plate, when you look at it, animal products will feature very heavily.
Meat will be the hero. I have a feeling cereals and refined carbohydrates are gone. So very sort of like primal paleo carnivore-ish. Hopefully a few veggies and fruit hit the plate. But I agree. I think the saturated fat is going to come back.
What I wish, honestly, I think I made this point earlier, is just recommend more of a Mediterranean diet. Doesn't have to be low fat. I agree. In 1980, problem was people ate low fat, started eating refined carbs. Let's give them a plate of food where it's healthy carbs. God forbid we could do this. Healthy carbs. We're not going to demonize carbs because there's different types. Healthy fiber-rich carbohydrate sources. Healthy sources of protein. We debate a little bit on what they are. And healthy sources of fat. It's not a low-fat diet. And then give people a bit of flexibility. Dial the carbs up a bit, moderate, low.
Very sensible.
Ultra-processed foods to less than 10% of calories.
People are just so confused. So confused. There's absolutely no trust left in the system. People get their advice from TikTokers who are 16 years old. It is unbelievable the world we're in right now. Well, it is the world we're in, so we've got to just navigate it, eh? Far out.
Or we just go and call our mum and focus on on those things.
Yeah, I know. It's every man for themselves, I guess.
We need to get out of here.
Okay. Just play it out.
Seems fitting. Is there two cooler dudes jamming on a stage?
And unlikely duo. Very unlikely duo. Actually, what are some artists that you've been listening to lately? What are some music recommendations? Last gig we went to was Hermanos
Gutierrez, amazing.
Yeah.
Ecuadorian guitarist.
I think so, yeah.
Incredible music.
Yeah.
I often play that in the house, background music.
Lovely. Anyone else?
I rotate a lot, but at the moment, I'm listening to songs that I'm trying to learn.
Right.
Horse with No Name.
You
know that song?
No.
I love Angus Stone. I think Angus Stone's great.
I want to give you a challenge. 2026 challenge. I challenge you to write a song of your own, however you want to do it.
With a bridge and a chorus and verses.
A full song. Lyrics, verse, chorus, bridge, any chord structure you want. Challenge you to do it.
Is there a riff in there or?
You can do whatever you want. It's your song. Challenge you. And then next year, in studio.
Okay, we'll perform it.
You play it. It'll be the most vulnerable moment of your freaking life. But
what's it been like? Because you've been recording again.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I recorded this song 10 years ago and I never released it because I was never quite happy with it. But I got back in the studio last week and I'm like, it's ready. I'm going to release this thing. Because when you play a song over and over, you actually begin to almost hate it. And I remember when I first wrote it, I said to myself, this is the best song I've ever written. I cannot wait for the world to hear it. I recorded it. We tried to layer it, produce it. Weeks went on, months, years. And now I'm like, oh my God, is this even a good song anymore? But you forget it's your first reaction to it. That's like the strong one. So I'm back. I'm going to release this thing. It's an amazing experience. I really think you will enjoy this challenge.
Okay. That's a challenge accepted.
Because it can be any sort of emotive chord structure you want. The lyrics obviously need to be meaningful to you. So it makes you think about what you need to let out. You write it down, you refine it, you figure out the phrasing. Even if you're not confident singing, maybe I'll sing it for you. You can write the chords, tell me the lyrics and the melody. I'll sing it. We'll do a performance.
Okay.
Imagine if we got on stage.
Stay tuned. Madison Square
Garden. That's my challenge. MSG. Here we come.
I'm trying to think who else I'm listening to at the moment. I tend to have a lot of Spotify radio lists where I'll find an artist who I love their whatever sound they're producing, like Leon Bridges, and then let's find a lot of new artists through that.
To discover on Spotify is great.
And then I have like a playlist of all of the songs that I'm learning, like parts of the songs. Usually I learn a part and then I get bored of that song, like to your point. I'm like, okay, let's now go and practice something else.
Right. But when you get bored of your own song, it's quite a sad day. Like getting bored of someone else's song when you're trying to do a cover, it's like, that makes sense. But when it's
the Lumineers.
You love the Lumineers. Right.
What was it? Edward Sharp.
Yeah.
That song.
So you're like in the sort of folky,
that folky
acoustic.
Yeah, there's a bit of that happening.
Yeah.
I was really listening to a lot of Para Vancouver. That was more like a year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Tons of that.
Great sound. Yeah.
Nice. That was also tended to be some background music.
Yeah. That's awesome.
What about you?
Oh man. Like my Discover, I'm broad. Like I've thrown a big wide net. Like I go on Spotify Discover and I don't know what's going to hit me on each day. But mate, I'm on the Olivia Dean hype train.
I know.
I showed you yesterday.
Shared yesterday.
I get it. Like I just think she's unreal.
There are also voices I just go back to that are old.
Yeah.
Jeff Buckley.
Yeah. Timeless.
Bruce Springsteen.
Classics. Are you confident to sing if you were to?
No, I need to get some coaching.
Yeah. So mate, do it.
I need to get some coaching.
Have a couple of vocal lessons.
I actually have done some diction, like coaching, more on pronunciation.
I thought you were talking about something else for a second. Sorry. Yeah.
I love how your head just goes straight to the gutter.
For podcasting, you mean?
It's for speaking in general, whether it's on a stage or whether it's podcasting, just controlling vocals more. But the diction coach is also a singing coach. Does both.
Cool. Well, there we go. So you're in good hands.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see.
I hope the community keeps you accountable to this. I want your inbox blowing up.
Hold me accountable.
Weekly, monthly.
I did commit to the guitar.
Yeah,
I set that goal.
I will give you that.
Set that goal a couple of years ago.
Yep.
But I will say, I think my approach to guitar. So I flipped 180. So I told you my teacher when I was at school, drills, a lot of like structure. Now, free playtime, no structure. I think there's pros and cons.
Yeah, there are.
I need a little bit of structure. So some formal lessons probably will help me progress quicker.
The structure is important. I'm self-taught. You reach a ceiling where your creativity is capped. I can't write songs that don't sound like the ones I've already written because I don't have the skill set to explore the guitar anymore. So I probably should be doing the same thing. It's you've got to get that balance right. But you're still a beginner, so you've got plenty of time. Your ceiling is very tall. All right, man.
I think we did it.
We did it.
Yeah.
We're back. We are back.
Nice to have you back. Episode 400. Happy New Year.
It's crazy. 400, man. You've done 400 episodes.
Yeah.
Wow. That is
learned a lot.
Jeez.
We've covered a few things today.
Yeah.
Sign up to my Substack.
I want to read that. How do I find it? How do you do it? I've never done this.
I'll put a link on Instagram.
Okay.
To Substack.
All right,
First one is on protein, what we spoke about.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Check it out. Should we go optimize in the sauna and ice bar?
Yeah. Finish.
I got a spare CGM. You want to wear it for a little bit? Okay.
I'll do it.
Sweet.
All right. Good job, bro. There you have it, friends. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did and want to stay up to date with future episodes, be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow on Apple or Spotify. Finally, thank you for showing up and the effort that you're making to take control of your health. I look forward to hanging out with you again in the next episode.